Welcome back to our lessons. We only have an hour to record. You get me my wet hair. It is February now, and we're diving in now that we have our wedding over and Christmas and then our trip that we went on. We are trying to really dive in and do about 4 lessons a week. That's my plan. And now that I have these other things off my plate, I am able to dive in and actually prepare the lessons. This lesson, we are going to really focus on the progressive tense with the present, future, and past. The last one we focused on was the simple, right? And we're going to talk about the progressive. Now, the progressive is the ing. And it means it's happening now. See, it's the ing that's happening right now, at this time, at this place. You know, running, I'm running right now. Now, the very first thing we're going to tackle is your present progressive. I am tackling the present first, then the future, and then the past. Now, I learned it past, present, and future, which makes complete sense because we have the past, and the past, and the present, and then we have the future. But I'm switching it up a little bit and doing present first because present is the one where we get so many changes and conjugations that are confusing. And so I just want to remind you that with me putting present first, that's the one that you need to be really careful with when you're doing your tenses. There are 3 tenses. So we went over 3 tenses in the simple tense. We have present, future, and past, right? And in the progressive tense, we have present, future, and past. We have 12 tenses. I learned it that we only had 3 tenses. Present, future, and past, but we don't. And if you can learn it, all of your tenses, then you're going to be able to actually get in and figure out your helping verbs. Now, we're talking about the present progressive first. So we're going to do sentences in the present progressive. These are all, right here, present progressive. I am planting, I am digging, I am cutting. Now, to me, these look like super easy sentences, but they can be really confusing to some people. They are just really short sentences. The confusing part is you need to make sure that you are understanding first person, and you have to use am with first person. If you're using your progressive tense, am cutting. See, am cutting, first person. That's what is confusing. When you're sitting in your present progressive tense, you need to make sure you're doing am, are, and is. That's what belongs in the present tense, in the progressive. Present progressive, am, are, and is. Say that, boys. Am, are, and is. Am, are, and is. Am, are, and is. All right? So, am, are, and is. You need to know those, but they sit in different areas. Am is first person. Are is second person. You are planting, you are digging, you are cutting. That's how you use it. You is second person. First person is I. Me right here, I. Second person, you. You in the camera, right there, you. You are second person. You're right here with me. Now, third person, he is planting, she is digging, Daniel is cutting. Now, third person is a little bit trickier. You can have lots of third persons. You can have kitchen. You can have your nouns, your basic nouns. Daniel, Paul, any cities, those are your third persons. And that goes with is digging. So even though these look like super easy sentences, do you really understand what they are? Is the true question. What is that? That is your third person progressive tense. Present. It matters that you know it's present. It's your present tense. Third person progressive present tense. And when you have your INGs, you have to have an auxiliary verb. You can't, if you're going to use it as a verb, because these are participles, right here. And remember, we can have them as gerunds, right? But these are participles, and if you're going to use them as the participle verb, you have to have an auxiliary verb to go with it, and these are be verbs. And if you don't understand how to use your be verbs correctly, then that's where it gets confusing. No, first person am, I am. Second person is are, you are. Third person is, and that is Daniel or she, and we have, you have your other third person word. Progressive tenses are your INGs. Look, first person. Here is the present progressive tenses. Now we're going to use your sleep and teach. Now these words right here, they're in your simple tense, right? Simple present tense, that's what these are right here. Simple present tense. We don't just say that. These are your base words. That's what these are. When you say, well, what is that? That's your word. And they are what? Simple present tense, right? But that's how you start it out, and then you add on your suffixes, and your suffixes change the word to mean what you need it to mean. And if we're going to put the ing onto sleep and make sleeping, we're going to change that word to mean from the simple tense into the progressive tense, but then you have to use an auxiliary verb to do that, right? I am currently sleeping at the inn in town. Am, see look, first person, your auxiliary verb am, and then you're sleeping. But currently right here, now I wanted to put in here, what is currently, what part of speech is currently?
Present.
Nice, it is an adverb. Adverb, this adverb describes am sleeping. You are currently sleeping, right? At the inn in town. So I wanted to show that you can separate your auxiliary verb from your progressive word right here. You can separate those. It doesn't change anything. It's still first person, present, progressive tense. These are still that, even though this is in the middle. Okay, so look at this. This in and this in. What's the difference? This is a homophone. So one is a hotel or a motel, and the other one is a preposition. It's in town, so it's telling you where. So currently is a word that is used often with your progressive tenses. It's currently happening. Can you see why current would be a word that you would use all the time? So it's telling us something. I am supposedly teaching in room 101. Okay, so now you have what is your present progressive tense in there. Am teaching. See, we have our ing on our simple tense word right here, our base word. And it's putting it in the progressive, but to have it be part of the progressive, you have to use the correct auxiliary verb. And since it's in first person, then you have to use the word am, no matter what. You can't say, I is supposedly teaching in room 101. It doesn't even make sense. It sounds bad. But I know people try to do it. They don't understand the difference between am and is, or even is and are. Listen to this. I are supposedly teaching in room 101. You can't do that because are is used for second person and are is also plural. Now let's go into second person right here. You are currently sleeping at the inn in town. So now see, second person, it's you. And you're using your auxiliary verb are. You are supposedly teaching in room 101. So that puts you in second person. You am supposedly teaching. You can't do that. You can't do you is supposedly teaching. So you follow the rules that we have. Look at that. Third person. We're talking about third person in our present progressive tense. We're going to use sleep and teach. These are our base words. They are our simple tense words. And we're going to change these simple tense words into our progressive tense by adding the suffix ing to it. Now, Paul Daniel is currently sleeping at the inn in town. See how you can use all of these words. It's changing things though. Now this is third person, and you have to use is. You can't say Daniel are currently sleeping. You can't do that. You can say Paul and Daniel are, because that's plural, but you can't do it with singular. Paul is supposedly teaching in room 101. So make sure that you have your persons correct. Now, if we are going to stay in present, if we're going to stay in the present progressive tense with our INGs, what auxiliary verbs do we need to use? Am, are, and is. Say them again. Am, are, and is. Say it again. Am, are, and is. What tense does this put you in, Paul? Am, are, and is. What tense are you in?
Present.
Tense.
Present.
So if we're going to put them with the ing, it's the present progressive tense. Add in, now that you're really solid on your singulars, now let's add in our plurals. Now look, we have our first person, progressive tense, and it's in the present. Now we're adding the plural. I am continuing. See, that's singular. We are continuing, that's plural. Now I use the word continuing because I want you to remember, boys, I want you to remember that continuing is a progressive word. We're continuing forward. We're moving forward, okay? So I'm putting that in all of our words right here so you do not forget that the progressive tense is in the continuing action. You're moving forward. We are continuing. See how are we used in second person, whether it was singular or plural? Here, it is plural when we use it in first person. We are continuing. First person, plural. Okay? So first person, plural, takes the plural verb with the progressive word. What's your base word right there?
Continue.
Yeah, continue. Continue is your simple present tense word. We have our second person progressive tense in the present. You are continuing is the singular. You are continuing is the plural. It's the exact same thing. You just use are. Plural, plural, plural. Use the word are. You are. But present is confusing. But when you're in second person, it takes the same. Okay? Third person progressive tense, present. We're still in the present. Paul is continuing. So we are progressing forward. We're continuing. Is singular. They are continuing. Are is plural. Look, are. It's all the same when it's plural. Where it changes is in the progressive present singular tense. See where it changes? Where does it change? The progressive present singular. See, it changes right here. Changes in there. The progressive present, and it has to be changing the singular. The progressive shows a continuing action. All I've done right here is I've changed our auxiliary verbs, our helping verbs, to put us in the future progressive tense. We have sentences in the future progressive tense, all right? So now it says, I will be planting, I will be digging, I will be cutting. Now look, first person will be, second person, you will be planting, you will be digging, you will be cutting. Did anything change?
No.
It's the same in first person as it is in second person. Now let's see what happens in third person. Are you following me, Paul? Third person. He will be planting. She will be digging. Daniel will be cutting. See why present is confusing? All of these changed in our persons, but did any of our auxiliary verbs change in our future No, it did not change in our future, right? First person is will be. I will be. Second person is will be. You will be. Third person is will be. Daniel will be. She will be. It doesn't change. So it's super important that you're understanding this is future tense. So you're putting your auxiliary verbs will be with your progressive participle. And that's what makes you sit in the future progressive tense. All right, so now your INGs, remember, first person, here is future progressive tense. We're going to work on, we're keeping everything the same. Sleep and teach. I will be currently sleeping at the inn in town. Now this is what's kind of fun with currently also that we didn't talk about. See how we could say currently I will be teaching at the inn in town. Our adverbs bounce. Adjectives typically go in the attributive position if they're talking about the noun, unless they're in the predicate adjective position. But look, this can bounce. It could say, currently I will be sleeping at the inn in town. It could say, I will be sleeping currently at the inn in town. I will be sleeping at the inn in town currently. I mean, see how it bounces. LYs typically, they're adverbs and they're typically describing your verb. Not always. Is will be the same in first person? I will be. Remember, future will be is the future progressive tense. You just need to remember, will be, it's the same for your first, second, and third. I will be supposedly teaching in room 101. Supposedly, I will be teaching in room 101. So you can move your adverbs around your sentence. Now remember, will be is the future progressive tense. It's the same. So you will be currently sleeping at the inn in town. It doesn't change, it's future progressive tense. It's the exact same. You will be supposedly teaching in room 101. Did it change? Anything? Third person, Daniel will be currently sleeping at the inn in town. Third person, Paul will be supposedly teaching in room 101. Did it change? Remember, will be is your future progressive tense. So we will go over other tenses, but just so you remember that that's how you get the future progressive tense, is you add your ing to your base word, your simple tense word, and then you add the words, the auxiliary verbs will be. And that's how you get your future progressive tense. First person, progressive tense, this is sitting in the future. I will be continuing, singular. We will be continuing, it's plural. Do we change anything there? It's the same. Second person, progressive tense for the future. You will be continuing is singular. You will be continuing is plural. You see how you don't get mixed up with the future like you would in the present? Third person progressive tense in the future. Paul will be continuing. See how that's singular. They will be continuing. It's plural. They're exactly the same. So you don't have to worry about matching your subjects and your verbs together because they're the same if it's sitting in the progressive tense future. Whether it's first, second, or third person, it's not changing. But it still shows a continuing action. Whether it's showing in the future, it's still continuing. It's moving forward and showing a continuing action. Now we're going into the past progressive. So all that changes is our auxiliary verbs, and we have to use auxiliary verbs that are in the past. But you have to use the progressive past auxiliary verb. And the progressive past auxiliary verbs are am, is, are, was, and were. So the past though is was and were. If you're going to do past progressive, what verbs do we need to use? helping verbs. Was and were. What are we going to use? Was and were. Was and were. You need to remember that those are in the past. Was is singular, were is plural. Was is singular, were is plural. What? Say that. Was is singular, were is plural. Was is singular, were is plural. Sentences in the past progressive. I was planting, I was digging, I was cutting. Now, that's in first person. Now, in second person, you were planting, you were digging, you were cutting. You have to use the word were when you're in second person. He was planting, she was digging, Daniel was cutting. See how we use he was. It's the singular verb. It's the same. Singular takes singular, singular takes singular, singular takes singular, singular takes singular. See, it's the same word, though. So just remember that. If you're in first person, it's the same as was. If you're in second person, it's the same as was. I mean, if you're in third person, it's the same as was, as in first person. Now, the word were is typically plural. But if you're in second person, it's going to be singular or plural. So it's taking, see, even though this is singular in this sentence, it's taking the singular verb. If this is singular, 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 singular. So when it's singular, in second person, it's taking the singular. Look at this. The first person, I was. Second person, you were. Third person, Daniel was. She was. So, see, remember that. Was and were. Say it again. Was and were is the past progressive. Was and were is the past progressive. You need to know how to use them properly. Now, INGs. What are your INGs? Your progressive tense. Whether it's in the present, future, or the past. In the present, future, or past are your auxiliary verbs. Okay? What puts you in the present, future, or past? Our auxiliary verbs. And then you have your ING, that is your participle. Remember, they can also be gerunds. Gerunds act as nouns, but then they're not a participle, right? Now, participles with our INGs, if we're using them as a verb, now remember, our INGs, a participle means you're sharing. So you're sharing it with another part of speech. And that means most of the time you're going to see that other part of speech sitting as an adjective. Okay? And then they do sit as gerunds. But then it's not considered a participle when it's a gerund. The first person here is past progressive tense. We're going to use sleep and teach again. These are our simple present tense verbs. They are our base words. We are going to put on our INGs to keep them in the progressive tense, right? I was currently sleeping at the inn in town. This currently is describing was sleeping. I was supposedly teaching in room 101. Second person, you were currently sleeping at the inn in town. Second person, you were supposedly teaching in room 101. This is second person, and it takes, no matter what, in second person, you're going to take the verb were, the auxiliary verb were. Now look at third person. Daniel was currently sleeping at the inn in town. See how, remember, you only have to worry about two verbs in your past. That is what? Was and were. Paul was supposedly teaching in room 101. So, was and were are your main ones in the progressive tense. What tense is this that you were focusing on, you guys? Past. Progressive past tense. Progressive, progressive, progressive. You need to remember, what tenses are we using in our progressive? Am, is, are, was, were. Am, is, are, was, were. So now we're sitting in the past. Okay, so same thing here. First person progressive tense in the past. We're going to talk about singular and plural. I was continuing. That's singular. Was takes the singular. We were continuing. Were is the plural. When it sits in the past, you're using was and were in the progressive tense for the past. Second person. This matters so much that you understand your persons, you guys. Don't forget to really understand your persons. Second person progressive tense for the past. You were continuing, singular. You were continuing, plural. It doesn't matter. That one doesn't change if you, in second person. You don't have to worry about it. It's the same. Third person progressive tense for the past. Paul was continuing. It's singular. See, singular, take. It's singular. Was is singular. They were continuing is plural. Were is plural. So you need to make sure. So were, see how it's plural in first, second, plural in first, second, and third. Were is plural in first, second, and third. And it was is singular in first and third person, right? So, but in second person, were is singular. Shows a continuing action. What shows a continuing action, boys?
Was or were.
The progressive tense. Just the progressive tense, whatever it is, whether it's in the present, future, or the past, it's sitting in the progressive tense. It's a continuing. That's why I use this word. I want you to remember that it's a continuing word. Okay, that's it for this lesson. I hope you like it. Learn your progressive tense and you will not regret it. Okay, we'll see you in the next lesson. Bye, everybody.
Thanks for watching. Bye.
Bye.